I am Suzanne LaGrande, and this is the Imaginary Possible, a show that explores the captivating potentials and the troubling realities of artificial intelligence today. Today, my guest is E.S.O. Martin, who is a writer and novelist who began experimenting with GPT to help her with her novels. To start, could you tell us a little bit about yourself?
My name's Emanuella Martin. I write under my initials, E.S.O. Martin. I have a creative writing MFA. I've worked as a journalist and as an editor and a publisher. And so I've been working sort of like in a professional, semi-professional capacity for about 17 years as a writer. So that's my experience, without AI, before AI. So um, yeah, so I have a published book that I wrote, before AI started being used. And I also have a short story collection, which is going to be coming out hopefully this year. But I've been saying that, and the editing always takes longer, but I'm really, really close. So it's an illustrated short story collection. And so all of these stories were written before AI, but there were a couple of editing tasks that I asked chat to, help me out with. And I thought like, oh, okay, because it's a new technology. I thought, what the heck, let's give it a try. There was a fiction writer in our group who was like, she was writing a story where she needed some extra progressive complications, and she asked for chat, like she told chat GPT-3, this is my concept for the story. Can you come up with like a list of progressive complications? And I thought like, oh, that's really cool as a writer, because those list type brainstorming ideas are things that I do without chat, but that also tends to be some of this, like the not time waster stuff, but it can take a long time of looking out the window, sort of like generating that, new material, pulling it from the ether, and how much more you can produce if you just like ask this thing, like, okay, can you please give me a list? I'll choose the ones I like, or reject your list, but just the fact that I saw one inspired more. So back in March, I went on and signed up for Chat 3 and just sort of like gave it a go and played around with it a little bit. I didn't use it for anything other than just like a few back and forth conversations, but I could automatically see like, oh, okay, this is going to actually be a major tool for the future. And this is something that I want to learn about, because I'm typically a late adopter for technology, because new technologies come out all the time and then fizzle out and don't matter. But I could tell like, oh, this is going to be a real game changer, and I want to learn how to use this, because this is definitely in my area of expertise. And because I have all of this writing experience ahead of time, I can take the skills that I know and ask chat to take over some of the things that I can do. I'm not asking it to do anything that I can't do, but I'm asking it to do things that usually are time consuming and are not, like my favorite, if that makes sense.
Yeah. And could you say like what a couple of those things are that you find time consuming and that it's just easier to have Chat GPT work on?
Yeah. So when I started writing, I kind of started out as a discovery writer type person. And what I found is that for me, my experience, writing that way can be really fun in the moment. But what can happen is that I generate lots and lots of words and scenes that don't hold together. So I've learned the hard way that if I want to tell a story that's really going to work structurally, then I kind of need an outline ahead of time. Mm-hmm. So I need a plan. And the planning stuff is, man, it can take a lot. It's a lot of like mental heavy lifting. And so much of what makes writing unique is a person's voice, their particular ethic. And for me, so, I've got this collection I'm working on, but I'm thinking about moving forward. Next year, I'm probably going to start moving in the direction of writing young adult fantasy romance. And so that's a genre that uses like series typically do really well. And so this month, what I've been using chat for is like, okay, this is my series concept. Let's come up with, I'm asking it to play the role of like, pretend you're a best-selling, young adult fantasy romance author. We're going to be co-writing a book together. This is my idea for the concept. Let's generate some ideas for books that would fit in this concept. And so then I pick a book idea I like, and I say, all right, this is what I see the vision of this book being. Could you put it in an outline format using like Save the Cat Beats? And then let's come up with a scene list after that. This is my spreadsheet that I use for, understanding characters better, to make sure that they have a tragic flaw, to make sure that they have like allies, to make sure that they have strengths, so I have the typical questions that I ask myself when I'm creating a character, the questions that I usually ask myself when I'm creating a plot. And instead of doing it in a notebook with pen and paper like I usually do, I'm just asking chat and I'm telling it the information I already have, and I'm asking it to fill in some of the blanks for me. And if it goes in a direction I don't want, I say, all right, let's, instead of doing that, I want to do it this way. Can you please redo it? And so for that type of a thing, like I can outline a book in a really detailed way where I'm going from concept, character list, act structure, scene list. If I were doing it without chat, it would probably take me several weeks to maybe even several months to get that detailed. With chat, I can do it in a day, which means I'm up and working on actual new words, new scenes much, much faster.
Do you find that you're writing novels faster using ChatGPT as a kind of sounding board?
Well, I've only been using it this way for like a week, so it's not like I've written many novels this way, but I can see like, oh, okay, wow, getting to the scene list stage means that I could start tomorrow, but the way I want to work is I actually want to plan out this entire series first. So I'm like, 4 books into like potentially an 8-book series. So I'm like halfway through. But the speed with which I've been able to see the whole thing much faster, like, yeah, I like, it's made it much, much easier for me to see starting. I could start on book 1, scene 1 today, but I want to outline the entire series before I get started, because sometimes something in book 8 might influence something in book 2, and I want to have that planned out first.
Do you use ChatGPT for things like proofreading?
I haven't. I have. So right now I'm actually signed up for Chat GPT-4 because I'm on there almost every day for writing and actually non-writing things too. Like I ask it for recipes, or, I'm homeschooling my son, so I can ask it for lesson plan type things. I'm learning Polish, as is my son. And so I've asked it for like Polish grammar instruction. Like, can you please explain the dative case to me and provide examples? And so I'm using it for all kinds of things, not just writing. And to me, it was worth, I also want to learn how to use it really well.
Is there anything that you would not use ChatGPT?
I wouldn't ask it to write the book for me.
And why not?
Why not? Well, because it's not very good at continuity. And also the writing of it is the fun part for me. So I'm preserving that for myself. And also the way I kind of see, it's sort of like a gray area for who owns the copyright of that thing right now. So if I were to write a book, I would want to definitely make sure that even with the outlining, there's a lot of human input going into this because its initial ideas are often very generic. And so it takes me and my vision to add specificity. Usually its first act is very slow. I have asked it to draft like scene parts before just to kind of like experiment. And I don't know, like sometimes the writing it comes up with, like I wouldn't use it that way. It would need to be heavily edited. Like it'll use a lot of Tom Swifties. It's like I have a lot of stories in me that I want to write, and I want its help to get me through the things that usually bog me down so that I can get to the things that I like faster.
That makes sense.
Writing is one of them.
What do you think about the criticism that some writers have of not just GPT, but all of AI in terms of using other writers' works to train on and essentially using copyrighted material?
Well, I think it's really tricky with the really big name people because, so for example, George R. R. Martin, it might have never read any of his books, but there's so many blog posts, there's so many book summaries, there's so many movie commentaries that are, like free on the web that chat could have read, like book reviews where maybe they have a sentence here, sentence there, and those are all within the licensable framework for those authors. And I can see how chat might have with all of the information that's out there for free, it could probably have connected the dots on its own about what happens in these books without having read the books. Mm-hmm. And also there's the argument of keep working on new things. And so far, the publishers haven't sued. So far, it's just writers suing. So, I mean, I don't know. Mm-hmm. I think that, it's sort of like it's a new technology. And right now, lots of things about it haven't been monetized. So, for example, when I look up recipes, if I try and Google recipes, there was once a time where people were just putting recipes up. Now, every time I try and Google a recipe for bread, it's got like ads, pop-ups, sign up for my newsletter, all of that extra stuff that has been monetized. And all of the first Google searches are all paid for ads, right? So far, Chat GPT hasn't had that happen to it yet, although I do feel like that's an inevitability where it'll start pointing people towards things that maybe have been paid. And right now it's still, it hasn't turned into that yet. So I want to use it as much as I can before it gets all junked up with advertisements.
For other writers who are thinking about using some of these tools, what would you suggest that they do?
I would suggest that they kind of treat it like a writing partner or I don't know, almost like a ghostwriter, where you're giving it really specific instructions about what you want. And also that if the story that chat comes up with doesn't fit with your vision, you correct it and just go with your vision. Because I would say to use it as a tool to help write the book of your heart, because that's why we're writing, right? We're not writing something that can be copied and imitated. I mean, there's so many other ways with which a person can make money, so if it's about paying the bills, there's other ways to do it. A lot of people are writing, because they want to tell a story of their heart. And so they can use this tool to help them do that. Another thing I would say is that it's, if you think about chat as like it's not omniscient. So another thing I would say is don't fact check everything it gives you. So for example, for an example, so I'm the series that I'm planning out has to do with young adult romantic fantasy, but set in a Polish mythological setting. And so one of the books that I was planning was about the mermaid of Warsaw. And so I said, all right, let's come up with an outline for the mermaid of Warsaw. Here's the characters, here's the story. And so it starts out like in a seaside town of Warsaw. And I was like, whoa. Hold your horses. Warsaw is landlocked. It's not by the sea. So you have to also do your research and not just trust what it gives you, because it might be incorrect information. It's not an omniscient tool. But it's still a tool. Think about how much easier it is to drive around using Google Maps instead of using, a map or just winging it and asking for directions. To me, chat as a tool is sort of like it's a map. This is my destination. This is where I want to go. Please give me the steps to get there.
Do you find that it gives you better information if you ask it nicely?
No. I mean, I always talk to it nicely. I say, please, And I also, so this is actually part of training it. If it gives you what you want, then you should say thank you, because that's giving it input that it gave you correct information. If it gave you something that you don't want, don't say thank you, good job, and then tell you what you want corrected, because that's giving it contradictory information. So when it gives me something that I don't want, I'll tell it the parts of it that I liked, that I wanted to preserve for its next iteration. So I'll say, thank you, I really liked the characterization here, and I really liked, what you did for scenes, 25 through 27. So I'm giving it feedback on the part of its answer that worked for me that I want to preserve for its next attempt. Mm-hmm. And then I tell it specifically what I want changed in the next attempt. I've heard this from romance authors. If you ask it to write a steamy romance scene, it might, because ChatGPT has guardrails on it, it might instead give you a advice on safe sex or something like that, and it won't produce the scene that you want. So you have to specify that you want it to be in fiction. There's another AI writing tool that's really popular that has first draft ability and also outline ability. That one's called Pseudo-Write, and I haven't played around with it yet, but I've heard a lot of people talk about it.
I have a feeling that a lot of writers are doing this as well.
Mm-hmm. I mean, it's a fun thing to play around with. It's really awesome as a brainstorming tool and as an outlining tool.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome. And so if people want to learn more about my work, my website is E.S.O Martin at ESOMartin.com. Yeah, www.ESOMartin.com. And I also have a free short story available for readers to download. It's called Heart in a Jar. And it's sort of like a dark fantasy type story.
When is the short story collection coming out?
Hopefully before the end of the year. The collected short stories is called What We Talk About When We Talk About the Apocalypse. So these are all short stories written between this year and so over the last 17 years, so 2006 to now, having to do with relationships, apocalypses, personal, relational, global, but most of the stories have to do with relationship themes.
You're listening to The Imaginary Possible, a show about the captivating potentials and troubling realities of artificial intelligence today. I'm Suzanne LaGrande, and this is KBOO Community Radio, KBOO 90.7 FM in Portland. To listen to this and other episodes of The Imaginary Possible, visit us online at kboo.fm or theimaginarypossible.com. Thanks so much for listening.